strong. Her life was in order, her career was booming. She met him not when she was weak, but when she was strong. Her life was in order, her career was booming, and in her eyes shone a confidence forged by her own victories. She was a woman who knew herself, or so she thought. But even the strongest armor has cracks, a quiet loneliness at the end of the day, a longing for understanding that goes beyond the superficial. He didn't just appear by chance. He watched her. He saw her light, her energy, her independence, and he wanted them, not to share them, but to own them. He appeared like a shadow in her world, gentle, attentive, with words that soothed like velvet, and a gaze that seemed to penetrate beyond the facade, directly into her soul. He didn't challenge her, he reflected her, becoming the perfect mirror of her deepest dreams. He whispered everything she secretly longed to hear, but had never said aloud. In the beginning, he was her rescuer, the knight she didn't know she was waiting for. Every meeting was like a scene from a movie. He remembered tiny details from their conversations, surprised her with her favorite flowers, and sent her messages that seemed to read her mind. He listened to her with his whole being, soaking up every word, every story, every insecurity. "I've never met a woman like you," he'd whisper, and those words echoed within her, filling gaps she didn't even know existed. Her world filled with warmth and meaning. She believed she had found something real, something rare, a soulmate who finally saw her for who she truly was. In his eyes, her quirks were charming, her ambitions inspiring. Every insecurity was turned into a virtue. He convinced her she was perfect. That was the first, sweetest lie. But gradually, almost unnoticeably, the mirror began to warp. The melody of their relationship changed. His words, once gentle, grew sharper, his gaze colder. Criticism was cleverly disguised as concern. "I'm saying this for your own good, darling. That dress is too provocative." Small, almost innocent comments about her clothes, about her laugh being too loud, about her friends who weren't good for her. Each remark was like a drop of poison, slowly seeping into her self-esteem. She began to doubt herself, her judgment, her memory. "Are you sure that's how it happened?" "I think you're exaggerating. You're too emotional." He rewrote their past, downplayed her feelings, until she started to wonder if she was going crazy. Was she too sensitive? Was the problem with her? Her reality, once clear and certain, began to blur into a fog of uncertainty. The next step was isolation. He convinced her that their love was special, a fortress that needed to be protected from the outside world. "They don't understand you like I do," he'd say, planting seeds of doubt about her closest friends. "Look how they stare. They're jealous of us." Every meeting with friends became a reason for an argument afterward. Every call from her family, an interrogation. "What did you talk about? What did you tell them about us?" He made her feel guilty for having her own world outside of him. Slowly but surely, he cut all her anchors. Friends stopped calling, tired of rejections and tension. Her family pulled away, confused by her distance. She was left alone on an island, whose only master, guard and god was him. Every tear of loneliness was his quiet, sinister victory. Her life became a trap, an endless cycle of pain and false hope. She fought, sometimes with herself, trying to justify his behavior, sometimes with him, in rare bursts of her old spirit. After every storm of anger, after every cold reproach, he would again become that gentle, understanding man from the beginning. This was his cruelest tactic. He hugged her when she was weakest, wiped her tears, and whispered promises that were just words, devoid of intention. "It won't happen again. Forgive me. I love you too much." And she, exhausted from the battle, hungry for a drop of affection, believed him. because not to believe meant accepting the terrifying truth. But as soon as he sensed her standing up, regaining a piece of her strength, he would push her away again. He punished her with silence, with neglect, with sudden coldness. He manipulated her with hope and fear, turning love into his most effective weapon. And then came the breakdown. It wasn't dramatic, but quiet and devastating. In one moment, after another lie, another humiliation, something in her just broke. She fell to her knees, not before him, but under the weight of her own pain. Her tears mixed with his shadow, which filled the room. She had hit rock bottom, that desolate, cold place where illusions die and only the truth remains in its rawest form. But right there, in the absolute darkness, something new was born. It wasn't hope, nor was it forgiveness. It was something more primal, more powerful. Anger. Pure, cold, crystal clear anger. Anger at him for what he had done to her, but also anger at herself, for allowing it to happen, for silencing her instincts, for betraying that strong woman she once was. And from that anger, from those ashes, a spark was born, a wild, unstoppable, fierce desire to reclaim herself. She stood up. The movement was slow, as if her muscles had to remember how, but it was irreversible. She wiped her tears not with sadness, but with determination. She looked towards the light from the window, and for the first time in months, she didn't just see a day, but an opportunity. The path ahead was unclear and frightening. To be alone, to face the world she had willingly left, to heal wounds that no one saw. But the thought of staying here in this gilded cage was not just frightening, it was unthinkable. She was no longer a victim, but a survivor. A woman who was remembering who she was and knew the true cost of freedom. He remained in the shadows while she gathered her essentials. When she looked at him for the last time, he was no longer a savior, nor a monster. He was just a memory, a painful but important lesson. The first steps were the hardest. The silence in the empty apartment was deafening. The ghosts of his words haunted her sleepless nights. But she didn't turn back. She began to rebuild the bridges he had burned. She called a friend whose voice trembled with relief. She visited her parents, who hugged her without questions, only with love. She started doing small things just for herself, listening to music he hated, wearing clothes he found inappropriate, laughing loudly and without inhibition. Every such act was an act of rebellion, a declaration of independence. She was learning again to trust her own judgment, to hear her own voice, and she, reborn, scarred but stronger than ever, walked towards her own sunrise, ready to love herself again, truly, unconditionally, and forever.